Less than 24 hours before the general elections in Honduras, thousands of voters could be left without the possibility of casting their ballots, as they haven't received their identification documents. The Dominican Republic hosted the first meeting of Ibero-American Foreign Ministers on Friday, where the agenda for the 28th Ibero-American Summit of Heads of State and Government was defined. It will be held next year. Around 23 million registered Algerians choose mayors and representatives in regional assemblies this Saturday, in worrying times for the government and citizens over the rising prices of basic goods. Hello, welcome to From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the Telesur studios in Havana. We begin with the news. Just days shy of the general elections in Honduras, thousands of people could be left without the right to vote, as the National Registry has not delivered their new identification cards. Our correspondent Gilda Silvestrucci brings us more details.
Outside the National Pedagogical University, where identity cards are handed out, hundreds of people are waiting to receive their documents. Although they registered more than a year ago, they still do not have their identifications. When I went to see the person who was giving them, they said that there was a wrong number. It was a year old. Well, the letters on the certificate that they give you were erased. The paper was in blank. More than 5 million people registered for the census, but even though the registration was on time, every time they go to the National Registry unit, they are told to come back another day. It was not ready. It did not appear in the system, but I was patient. I went and came back and went again. Days before the polls open, there is no response from the authorities in charge of the identification process, while voters are beginning to get used to the idea that they will not go to the polls. I have been going to all the places to Ciudad España, to Amarateca. They only make you happy. Here I have come 3 times, and the 3 times it's never there. It is a part of the mishandling of the National Registry before I went to the registry, and they took my identity card and now they don't. And now, who is going to pay for that ticket? Some opposition candidates suggest that this is a fraud strategy, given that 100,000 people from the opposition could be left out of the electoral process.
Here there will be at least 500,000 people left without voting because the process has been unsuccessful. Many people came many times and did not find their identity card and did not return, and there are a lot of identity cards that are not being delivered because people got tired of coming. So watch out, because here a fraud may be starting since some are being given their IDs and others are not.
The new census was part of the agreements between parties to counteract electoral fraud, as there were many deceased who appear as active voters, but now thousands will not be able to participate due to the delay in the process.
Gilda Silvestrucci, Telesur, Honduras.
A center dedicated to the study of the thought of the leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, was opened on Thursday on the 5th anniversary of his death. Our correspondent Fabiola Lopez has a story.
The Fidel Castro Center is a gift to Cuba. This place is the testimony of his life and work. It tells the story of Fidel, which is the story of this island in recent times. Here nothing is casual. Everything has an intention. Every space is symbolic. Every element is iconic. The forest surrounding his life in Virán, the trees of the Sierra Maestra, the stones of the river La Plata in El Salto de Agua, the national tree of Venezuela, the protein plants that he researched in the last day of his existence.
Those who come here are going to learn, let's say, not the boring speech of the blockade, not the speech of those who sometimes think that the Cuban Revolution is a jibber-jabber, but how to reinvent a national project, how to reinvent that Cuban Revolution, that constant perfectibility that Fidel sought. As Silvio said, I don't know if he believes that heaven is on earth, but what he does believe is that he has to fight constantly for it.
Nothing is missing in this complex. A temporary exhibition hall, an amphitheater, a printing press, a publishing house, a research center, an audiovisual group, a multipurpose hall that includes a cinema for 3D projections, an interactive games area with 40 virtual visits, virtual and traditional libraries, and 9 exhibition halls that attempt to bring together the immense work and legacy with the most up-to-date technological support.
I think that here at the end, you can feel that mistake of Fidel. I think that he even had to do with the design, his conception. I think he had to do with that too, even with the colors that have been used for this space, the way it has been organized, the information, all the places, all the spaces. I think that wherever you go from the moment you walk through the gardens, you start to imagine Fidel as if he was here.
In the room called Fidel en el Tiempo, through interactive screen, the visitor will be able to go through his 90 years of life. As a guerrilla fighter, it portrays Fidel as that strategist and tactician, his first degree of commander, the legendary cap, the rifle that accompanied him great out of his life. The gallery Fidel es un país goes through the history of the Cuba he received and the country he bequeathed. Here, the always simple clothes from the last stage of his life when he was following up his agroecological project.
In the center you feel his presence. There is a particular energy that has been achieved through his belongings, that if you look closely, they aren't too many, because he didn't need too many things in his life. He always wore olive green, and that Jesuit tradition that accompanied him since he was very young. He needed neither no excesses or luxury to live.
The Sala Cuba reflects the architectural values of this heritage mansion without the intervention of museography. Here, the visitor can see his condecorations, the gifts he received as head of state and then donated to museums in the country, and the gift from Xi Jinping when he visited Cuba. No exhibit is shown outdoors to avoid tribute as he wished. In the Solidarity Gallery, the technological resources are optimized. The aid given and received by Cuba is collected, as well as Fidel's visit to different places in the world.
I think he would be very proud, he would be very happy, and not because they are talking about his history, but because they are talking about the Cuban. We have done a bit thinking about what he would not like to see here. This is not a place to worship him. This is not an indoctrination center.
I think that what he would most like this place to be is a kind of, let's say, mosque or a church of resistance. This center has that purpose, right? To keep Fidel alive and fighting together with us in the new circumstances.
Of course, the speakers could not be absent from this journey into an immense life. Here are some of his memorable speeches.
De que los problemas del mundo se pueden resolver con armas nucleares.
But it is in the room Fidel is Fidel where emotions overflow.
Yo definiría a nuestro Fidel como un ser especial.
Para mí Fidel es el hombre más grande de este siglo, compadre, más allá de la dimensión humana.
Fidel es Fidel.
Fabiola López, Telesur, La Habana.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Hello, welcome back to From the South. The Dominican Republic hosted the first meeting of Ibero-American Foreign Ministers on Friday, where the agenda for the 28th Ibero-American Summit of Heads of State and Government was defined. It will be held next year. Delegations from 22 countries participated in the meeting, where they discussed post-pandemic recovery and proposals and initiatives aimed at strengthening multilateralism, democracy, and people's well-being. The region's foreign ministers also debated initiatives recently proposed by the heads of finance to address economic crises and debts, as well as those discussed at the ministerial meetings on health and culture.
The Dominican government considers as a priority the creation of innovative financial instruments to facilitate the transition to this new development model that has been outlined in the documents of recent Ibero-American summits.
Polls reveal that support for United States President Joe Biden is falling, with only 43% approving his administration. This is the lowest approval rating the president has recorded since he took office on January 20th this year. The figures come as the Biden administration seeks to solve problems related to rising food and gasoline prices in the country. Meanwhile, studies published by the country's Labor Department revealed that inflation increased by 6.2% over a 12-month period. In Peru, a motion filed by opposition lawmakers to impeach President Pedro Castillo will be analyzed on Congress on December 7th. The motion requires 52 votes to be admitted for discussion in Congress, almost double the number of signatures collected to present the motion. If the impeachment motion is approved for further debate, the constitutional procedure establishes that the president must appear before Parliament and present his defense either in person or with the option of having a lawyer in his case. This is the second attempt by conservative forces to impeach Castillo, the last of which failed to secure enough votes in Congress. Former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva continues to lead the polls ahead of the 2022 presidential elections, despite having not officially confirmed his candidacy. According to a poll published on Wednesday by the consulting firm Modal Mais Futura, the leader of the Brazilian Workers' Party continues to lead the voter preferences with 38.6%. The poll also showed that voter preference for the Workers' Party increased from 42.5% last October to 43.7% in November. Meanwhile, current President Jair Bolsonaro trails behind with 32.4% of voter intention. Lula recently toured Europe, where he received a warm welcome from political movements and even the Spanish Prime Minister and French President. He has said he will confirm whether he is going to run in 2022 at the beginning of the new year. According to Russian military sources, members of the Al-Nusra Front terrorist group stored containers with toxic substances in order to organize acts of provocation. Deputy head of the Russian Center for the Reconciliation of Warring Parties in Syria, Rear Admiral Vadim Kulit, disclosed that members of the terrorist group stocked toxic substances in an underground shelter near the city of Sarmada, Idlib province, and intended to stage chemical attacks in order to blame the Syrian government troops for using chemical weapons against civilians. Such accusations have been launched against the Syrian government on various occasions and echoed by Western powers despite evidence of their falsehood. At least 135 Palestinians have been injured by Israeli forces during attacks on anti-settlement protests in the occupied West Bank district of Nablus. The Palestinian Information Center cited the Palestine Red Crescent Society as saying that 19 Palestinians, including journalists, were hit by rubber bullets fired by Israeli forces to disperse an anti-settlement protest on Sobey Mountain in Beita, south of Nablus City, on Friday. In addition, 97 Palestinians were reported to have suffered breathing difficulties due to inhaling tear gas used by the occupying troops against the protesters in Beita. Since May, clashes have intensified between Israeli forces and Palestinians protesting against an illegal settlement outpost that has been established on Sobey Mountain by settlers under the protection of Israeli forces. We have more news coming up after our final short break. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back to From the South. Around 23 million registered Algerians choose mayors and representatives in regional assemblies this Saturday. These elections are held amid widespread worry and frustration over rising prices for basic goods, housing, and healthcare. The government is hoping the election confirms support for President Abdelmajid Tebboune, who won election after his predecessor was ousted in 2019 by pro-democracy protests backed by the army chief. More than 134,000 candidates are running for the various seats. However, around 300,000 applications were rejected by electoral authorities, accused of being associated with criminal circles or dirty money.
In my opinion, the vote is an excellent thing for all Algerians. However, I think that there are huge problems throughout 48 governorates in the country and also in the town halls. It's up to the President of the Republic to take the measures to put a stop to these misconducts.
Police in Burkina Faso fired tear gas to disperse hundreds of protesters at an anti-government rally in the capital on Saturday. Anti-riot police fired tear gas to prevent the demonstrators from gathering for the rally in a square in the center of Ouagadougou, where substantial police and security forces had been deployed and all shops closed. The crowds had wanted to demonstrate against the failure of President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore to quell jihadist violence that has overwhelmed the country, but city authorities banned the gathering. Groups linked to al-Qaeda and the so-called Islamic State group have plagued the landlocked Sahel nation since 2015, killing about 2,000 people and displacing 1.4 million from their homes. And on COVID-related news, South Africa's health ministry on Friday stressed that Europe's rush to impose travel bans to slow the spread of a new COVID variant was draconian, unscientific, and contrary to WHO advice. Health Minister Joe Fala accused some leaders of seeking a scapegoat. The B11529 strain has blamed for a surge in British cases in South Africa, but has already cropped up in Hong Kong, Belgium, and Botswana. Austria, the Czech Republic, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands, among others, on Friday joined the United Kingdom in suspending flights from the southern Africa region. However, the World Health Organization on Friday urged against travel curbs at this stage, promoting caution and noting it could take several weeks to find out whether the newly discovered mutations made the virus more aggressive or transmissible. The restrictions have sent shockwaves through South Africa's tourist industry, which has been expecting visitors from the wealthier Northern Hemisphere to bring in much-needed income.
Actually a wrong approach. It's misdirected. It goes against, the norms as advised by the WHO. We just feel that some of the leadership of countries are finding scapegoats to deal with what is a worldwide problem.
I also want to say that the first time that we knew that any country was going to place any embargo on us, from my perspective, from our office, was at 10:20 last night, when I got a WhatsApp from someone in the British High Commission to apologize. And we didn't know at all at that stage. From our perspective, we think it's not useful and it's not constructive at all to do that, because all it does is it makes the countries where there are scientific capabilities less likely to report when they pick up something.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced that travel to countries in southern Africa should be suspended immediately to slow the spread of a new COVID-19 variant. She also noted that the EU's contracts with manufacturers require vaccines to be adapted to new variants.
The European Commission has today proposed to member states to activate the emergency brake on travel from countries in southern Africa and other countries affected to limit the spread of the new variant. All air travel to these countries should be suspended. They should be suspended until we have a clear understanding about the danger posed by this new variant. And travelers returning from this region should respect strict quarantine rules. The European Union's contract with the manufacturers says that the vaccine must be adapted immediately to new variants as they emerge.
Nigerian health authorities announced plans to extend COVID-19 vaccination to the most vulnerable and poorest sectors of the population. Health workers are preparing to expand the vaccination campaign, traveling to isolated rural areas to raise awareness about vaccine efficacy in areas where some are reluctant to receive the shots. So far, more than 3.4 million people have been fully vaccinated against the novel coronavirus in the country, but that only represents about 3% of the population. Authorities have stressed that the objective is to vaccinate at least 50% of them by February 2022.
Of the 5 kilometers, you have to climb Okada. For them to spend that Okada transport is a problem to them for coming to health facility. So we are planning to get to locate their point. So our major challenge now is about moving to Ifon Den. Now we have only one motorcycle in the clinic, and it's my personal one. Is the one we are using to move around.
Those of us that are here, when we heard about these vaccinations, we were not given a proper explanation about it. We only heard rumors that the vaccine was going to be used to reduce the population in the next 1 to 2 years. That was why people were afraid to have the vaccine. I was not bothered about taking the vaccine because I am old and close to death. So far, those of us that have taken the vaccine, we have not heard about any complications. We thank God.
We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories at our website, Tell Us Our English. You can also follow us on social media for the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Tell Us Our English, I am Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.